knocked on my door with words I heard once before. Just who you are is still unclear. Knowing one day you will leave, too much surprise and relief. Love was the reason you came here.
Yeah, glad you came. Yeah.
Peter, a delight. I get it all the time. I can't stop listening. Sometimes the way I find I learn most is when I get outside my own culture. When you get outside your own culture, then you begin to see what your culture is, right? The only thing a fish doesn't understand is water, because they never get out of the water. And so I thought I would share with you a story from another culture that helped me understand what Peter's been talking about. Up in British Columbia, in northern Canada, there's a river called the Skeena River. And I was once in, and along that river are mostly First Nations, or we would say Native people. And someplace I met a chief of one of these villages. And he asked if I'd come and spend some time with him. So I went down the Skeena River Valley to the reserve of the Gitskan band of the Kwakiutl people. And there were probably 400 people there on the edge of the river, mostly forest land. And they wanted to do something for me, so they performed a potlatch. How many of you know about a potlatch? It's a wonderful thing. Anthropologists will tell you the only place in the world where disputes are settled by gift giving is by the Kwakiutl people. And this is called a potlatch. And so there were 4 bands of this group, the fox, the turtle, the frog, and the fireweed. And they had a big room like this, and they sat around the table. And the head of each band would stand up and had a big pile of stuff, washcloths, ashtrays, cans of tomatoes. And they would take them one by one, these things, and put them in front of the band across the way, the frog people. And then the frog people had their pile, and they'd take it and give it over to the fox people. And the winner was the one who had given the most. Right? And you didn't win by being above the other people. But what they had come to do is to say, the way we will construct a community is with our gifts. So when they were done with the potlatch, this is a matrilineal tribe, and so a woman was in charge. She's an old woman, and she said to me, Mr. McKnight, we need now to have a meeting. You're welcome to stay. And then she said, now, Charlie Bearclaw died this week. We were all at the funeral. And she says, now there are only 6 of us left. She pointed to a man, John, Mary, Susan, went over, went to 6 people, and I noticed that they were all very old people. And she said, there are just 6 of us left who know how we were before the Indian Bureau and the social services came here. And we're reconstructing our way. But we've just been getting together every other week. And there are only 6 of us left who know our way. And we're all old. So we've got to begin to get together every week for this reconstruction of our community that was decimated when the helpers came. And so they then talked about the next step. The day after, I had a chance to meet with the regional director of the Indian Bureau. And I said to him that I had been with the Gizcan band, and I said, you know, they think you killed their community. And he said, I know now we're right. They're right. He said, but we're free now. He says, we're free because as they recover their way and become strong again as a community that knows how to survive and raise this young, we finally know what it is we could do that really would be helpful. And there's a huge difference between what we were doing, which killed their culture, and what now we can do, because we can see ourselves in terms of their community being central. And we can ask, is there something we can do that will support you doing what you do? And that's the kind of question I think we all face. I face that in university. So, really advanced people in systems like the guys from the Indian Bureau understand what that man understood. So really smart police chief will say to you today, you know, we have reached the limit of what we can do. We tried to do things, we put more and more resources into doing some things, and we know now they don't work. We have an idea about what we can do that makes a difference. And we're moving towards stopping doing all the stuff that either doesn't make a difference or erodes community. We hear this from some police superintendents. In fact, they said we now have neighborhood organizers in every district trying to get communities to grow in capacity and restoration. And the public health people who are really thinking are doing the same. We just did some work with the American Academy of Pediatrics. And they said, can you help our pediatricians understand the space of gifts and association so that they can connect there? And one of them said to me, you know, we do so little that has to do with child health. Mostly, we certify mothers. Most of the people who come into us, they don't need to see us, but they're worried about child raising. And they think if we say they're doing okay, they're doing okay. So they said, we have very little to do with child health, in fact. But maybe if we could get related to the gift-giving, associational aspect of life and support, we could become a fighter of the child health. So things are changing. People are getting the idea that the Indian Agency up there in British Columbia had in this problem. And that's what I think would be worthwhile for us to do ourselves today. And maybe a way of starting that is to say, if we think about the domain for which we sort of have responsibility, youth, health, education, what is it that we're asked to do that we now know we really can't? What is it? Or, if we can't, we've gone as far as we can. So, the question that gets us started in a new way is, what's our limit? What's the boundary? What do we try to do, or are responsible to do, that we now know we can't do? Like the smart police chief. No, pretty good. So let's spend some time from our institutional position, your institutional hat, and think together about what it is in our domain that we now know we can't really do as a professional selling a service, but has to be done if things are going, what can't we do? And it's not bad. It's the beginning of getting smart. So we're not asking anybody to condemn, but to understand what your tools, possibility, and limits are. We all teach at the university, we have a tool that's supposed to be about education. If we had the rest of the morning, I can tell you its limits. Huge. And if I don't understand that and act, create a narrative which tells everybody I can do what I really can't do, I'm a huge disabling force in the society, aren't I? Give me your children and I will educate them. So, the enabling of community, I think, starts when we say, what's our limit? So we can discover what the community space has to do. So that's what we'd like to discuss. What do you have in your domain that now you know, in an honest perspective, you really can do?
Well, the premise is that the social infrastructure has impact on content. So if we want powerful outcome to this conversation, this question John's framed, we have to also pay attention to how we organize to produce those insights. And let me repeat the protocol of that small group configuration that has the best chance of opening up space for something new to occur. All right, so the small group, it's groups of 3 because they're unstable. Groups of 2 are too small. Plus, when you break people into groups of 2, these are little tips, okay? Sometimes you're with it, get stuck with a person that doesn't want to be here, and then you're cooked. So how did I put it? What is this? With 3, the chance of getting stuck with somebody that doesn't want to be here is half. And so you double your chances of meaningful discussion. The second is that the world is transformed through invitation. So you have to find somebody that you know the least in this room. Because if you sit with somebody that you know, I promise you nothing important is going to happen. You'll just have a good time. You will enjoy yourself. You will find comfort, and you'll end the morning and say, well, that was nice, but nothing was produced. Nothing shifted. And so when people say it's the same old that, it was the same old because they chose comfort. They chose to sit on the side of the room, the back of the room. It amazes me, people go to church to find God and then sit next to the door. All right, so the back feels like, I came here to experience God, but I want to be able to get out of here quickly. So this is the ambivalence we have about connection. So find somebody, don't wait to be chosen. So that's the other part, comma, even if you have to travel, even if you have to get up and move. I know you're comfortable. I know you have your stuff around you. My purse, my papers, my everything, my water bottle, my coffee. Give me a break. That's fine, but if you choose the comfort of your own seat, nothing's going to happen. You'll just have a good time. So you say, I want to choose somebody I know the least. Don't wait to be chosen. I'm not interested if you're an introvert. I know what your Myers-Briggs scores are. And they are decisive. I agree, I'm an INFJ, have been for decades. All right? Pardon? So, got it? So then the third thing is, when you sit down with people, sit with your knees less than 9 inches from your neighbor. This proximity produces connection. It produces intimacy. It produces engagement. And without intimacy and connection, the words have no power. They just are words. And then the last thing is, do not be helpful to each other. All right? No advice, no help, no sharing what you did years ago that worked for you because you didn't do it years ago and it didn't work. And then we say, well, that was fine when I grew up. And the implication was I turned out fine. Well, I didn't turn out fine. All families are dysfunctional. That's what they're called. Families is code for dysfunction. I don't want to hear about your happy childhood. Okay. A friend of mine, Peter, says everybody's wounded at the moment of birth. And I like that. That I can just relax and realize it's my humanity, not my neurosis that I've been trying to deal with. Okay? So don't be helpful. Get curious instead. What's healing to youth and the land and the economy and my health is just getting interested. And so you ask each other, why does that matter to you? What's the meaning it has for you? What does that do for you? And then leave it at that. Don't go anywhere with it, which allows you not to worry about what you're going to say next. Okay? So those are the universal ground rules of how small groups participate fully in something that creates space for transformation, something really to shift. So let's do this now. The question I circled up here, I wrote it down, what is it, etc. Like all of our questions, it's vague, ambiguous, perfect. So if you don't understand the question, you're in great company. And let's take about 20 minutes, and then in groups of 3, do it now. So how about collecting things that struck you? Now let me make the invitation today that I made yesterday, if I can have your attention. If any of you, the way we come together matters. And you say we have to create in our own experience what we're looking to create in the world. So we need music and poetry if anything's going to shift. If the purpose, the arts are prophetic. They are in the Bible. The prophets were the poets. And they're the ones that kind of saw what was happening, named it, and talked about the future. And the same with us. We need a poet in the room. We need a song in the room, which gives us another medium in which to experience possibility. And part of the idea of the narrative is we're here to come to talk about the possibilities, not the problems. Because whatever you speak into gets strong. Like it or not, what happens if you just speak into problems is you have a great time and leave depressed. So I'd rather have a miserable time and leave happy. And so in some sense, so if any of you would like to share a song with us at any moment, you're most welcome to do that. If any of you have a poem to share with us, you're most welcome to do that. Yes. Please, come and sing a song. Thank you.
And I'm not much of a singer. So
She's not much of a singer, so let's get those expectations down.
Favorite, and it's around, but I'm not ready to try that either. So let's sing as soon as you know what I'm singing. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come round where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we don't have to be ashamed. Turn and to turn, it will be our delight, till by turning and turning we come round right.
So that's an act of generosity. And it changes the room. Feel it? The whole world shifts at that moment through the act of generosity. And then if she sings, that's just a bonus. So if anybody else has a song or a poem, anytime, let us know, because we are waiting for it. Okay. So let me ask you what came out of the discussions you just had. What struck you about the conversation? Let's collect 4 or 5. And the idea, if you hear 4 or 5 people, you've heard the room. Because it's all one body. Just like in a neighborhood, just like in Institute. So you don't have to get everybody's. And the small group solves the problem of everybody's voice in the room. And so if the future is created by us, then everybody's voice has to be heard. It just doesn't have to be heard by everybody.
And even though you can barely see me, I am standing. Now, my children say I'm vertically challenged, and I say I love being this size. My name is Bliss Brown. And one of the things we were just talking about is that a limit that we often encounter is actually a limit of imagination. And that it's important to in any community or system to think about what images have authority for the collective as well as for the individual, because often something which manifests as a structure is actually a limit of imagination.
Part of the new narrative is to redecide who we authorize to speak. And right now we authorize leaders, elected officials, big building occupants, wealthy people, media to speak for us. And so part of the shift in narrative is to deauthorize that and reauthorize citizens. They also like to share. Anything struck you? Yeah. It's a long walk up.
My name is Chris, and I'm talking to Laura and Salita, my friends. I work in the field of education, and one of the things I was describing as a limitation is the paradigm shifts of wanting to integrate, for example, social and emotional learning into school systems that are really focused on achievement test scores. And in the conversation and in the sharing that I was hearing from my new friends, I realized that one of the other limitations is not just the one that I perceive as being out there, the paradigm shifts, but also the one within me. Because while on one hand I want to profess that I believe in the whole child and education for the whole child, I'm also a product of the system that I want to help change. And so it's really difficult to be conscious all the time of where am I standing in this moment, what I'm saying, what I'm doing. Am I representing this, the existing paradigm, or the paradigm I'd like to see happen? So thank you, ladies. That was a really important aha for me. And one of the things that struck me that I'm very impressed by is not having known the 2 individuals before that I was sitting down with, there was a common conversation about the limitations of our profession whether the nonprofit, the organization, or the police department, but being a catalyst for bringing together the community to talk about how they can solve the problems, how they can, or how we can re-educate them that they have the power to do that. Thinking in the context of the people I came here with, we serve communities that often, you hear in the news, low income, impoverished, put every other ill label here on the communities, some of the communities we serve. And how the internalized oppression of those communities, they believe that of themselves. And I think part of our work is to break down those walls that they've built because of that belief they have, and to show them they have the power to transform their communities, which, as an executive director of a nonprofit organization, makes my job so much easier, because I don't have to save them. I don't have to be the professional that comes with the answers, because the first thing I learned trying to do this work was I don't have any answers. I just have a whole lot of questions. But if I can help people engage in those discussions, I think the power lies within that. So I think we all are really happy about being here because we're learning that and how to do that in community.
One more. Thank you. Karen? This is called bringing the voice of those on the margin into the center.
Well, so this was an interesting thing for me because I've been hired by a group of foundations exclusively to change the food system.
Who are you?
I'm Karen Lehman, sorry. And the question I came up with is, what if we just let the food system change? What's the difference between trying to change the food system and letting the food system change? Because what everybody says is we need more money. And here I am, I'm sitting with the people who have the money. But I see this food system changing all over the place without us. And I feel guilty about it. I say, we're not helping enough. You know, we're not getting the money out there. And it's made me think, okay, maybe there are things that we should be thinking about that aren't about, like I'm thinking I have to go out and raise $10 million so I can put more money out there. And maybe I should really not raise $10 million more dollars. Yeah. Because if I raise $10 million more dollars, then I'll be looking for more people, more nonprofits. And I've had the experience of a program that the city of Minneapolis did, where they gave neighborhood organizations money for people in the neighborhoods to decide how to spend. And that's how we started the Youth Farm and Market Project, was with $10,000 from that program. And it's still going now, 15 years later.
I love the city, I love the people, and I have the skill set, I have the experience to help put Chicago in the right direction, to prioritize the neighborhoods, to give people hope that we can have a city that is livable, where there's public safety, where the children can walk to school in the neighborhoods they live in, where businesses are created in the neighborhoods and communities where people can have jobs. We can do these things with vision for the best that Chicago can be.